I'm on mute. Okay, hi. Sorry, I didn't realize how late it was. I was on a long video chat with Michael and Gia for like the last hour, and then I'm like, ooh. I have a video I'm uploading because she won first place in the gingerbread contest. I can't even believe it. So when I say I can't believe it, not that I can't believe she won. I can't believe that she entered it. I didn't even realize that there was a contest, but my son said it's for the last 23 years. And she entered it and she had a first place ribbon. She sent me a little video and I have it uploading as a short, but I'm adding some music and I don't know if it's in there yet, but I'm going to put it up. All right. Hope you all had a good Christmas. And let me see, am I over here? Uh-oh, videos. Okay. And then I had a chat with my daughter. What else? Jimmy and I went for a walk around the lake. Kids opened their presents. Ethan's feeling better. He was actually outside today, so that was good. And we're planning on doing the do-over. Anyway, let's see here. Kevin Leonard, Julie W., Flower Girl Phillips. Let me see here. Oh, I should be in there. Now I've got 20. Okay, so how's everybody doing? Love the title. Yeah, Christmas doesn't take a holiday. And I also hear that there's some craziness going on with Turtleboy guy, right? There's a BOLO out for him or something. I don't know what's going on with that. All I know, I really haven't followed that very much. I know that there's some case that he's commenting on or something with a Karen lady, and I know there's just a lot of crazy going on. Oh, and I've been painting sunflowers today. Where did I put my sunflowers? They're over. I was showing my son them. Hi, Maliwa. Hi. But there was a shooting today in, kind of a standoff in Newtown, Connecticut. I just realized I left my watch upstairs. All right, let's see what's going on. I'm going to see what's going on with the Turtleboy stuff too, because there's some kind of really crazy stuff going on with that. So there's a BOLO issued for Turtleboy 53 minutes ago. Let's see what's going on with that. This is in Medfield, Massachusetts. A law enforcement BOLO, which is a be on the lookout, has been issued for Aidan Kearney, the Holden blogger who calls himself Turtleboy. Two sources, including a member of law enforcement, told a news media company, 25 Investigates, that police are seeking to immediately be on the lookout for Kearney, who is on probable cause for felony charges of domestic assault and battery and witness intimidation. The new development is from an incident Kearney was allegedly involved in on Friday at a Medfield home of a woman he's been in a relationship with. Let's see, to determine what the woman alleges he did to her. I did hear a little bit of a video out there where she's screaming, and the sources say the woman had previously shared information about Kearney with, or is it Kearney or Kearney? Kearney with the state police investigators, and is considered a witness in his ongoing prosecution that began with his arrest and district court appearance in October. So apparently this is all exactly what all this is about. Yeah, I probably need cliff notes on this. Let me see here. I need like really big cliff notes on this. He's a former history teacher who left teaching to blog full-time about people who personally offend him. Okay, so he has vendettas that zigzag across political lines. He attacks people via his blog, and he's vicious, dehumanizing in all the ways a person can be. They say he's racist and classist, and mostly racist and classist in his descriptions and assessment of people. Okay, let's see. He's gaining more recognition mainstream because he is full steam on a free Karen Reed campaign. So Karen Reed and the death that she is suspected of causing is fraught with conspiracy theories. He promotes a lot of half-truths about people's actual lives. Well, it sounds like YouTube, right? And seems to base most of his evidence on late-night, possibly alcohol-fueled Facebook stalking. Sounds like YouTube. He seems intent on destroying people's lives. Sounds like YouTube. And reputations. Again, YouTube. When he has decided that there is something wrong with them or that they have committed an offense that he finds egregious. Sounds like YouTube. Okay, so Karen Reed. Let's see what she has done, because Karen Reed. Okay, Karen Reed case in Canton, Massachusetts, I guess, right? Okay, so let's see what this is about. You know, when I was thinking about a case, I remember one that talked about it. It was something in Massachusetts. Does anybody remember it? And there was like a daughter, there were 2 daughters or something, and they were home for the holidays or something, and one kid, I can't remember if somebody told us a story about that or we read a story about that. I think we did, and one of them killed somebody, and then I thought I saw it on the, like on a one of those shows, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is that the one we read about, learned about on here, or someone told us about? And I can remember it so vividly, and I remember like an island counter, and the girl was going around, and it was something about her mother. I think it was in Nantucket or something. I don't know, I just remember it so clearly and then not clearly. But anyway, so, this is about, I know which one, this is about the girl that ran the guy over in the snow, is it? Let me see here if this is what happened there. Isn't that the one that I think so? Let me see. When did this happen? On a Friday night in late January 2022, at around 11 p.m., John O'Keefe and Karen Reed stepped into the Waterfall Bar and Grill on Washington Street. It was their second stop after visiting another local bar and grill. O'Keefe was a Boston Police Department officer. He'd been living in Canton since 2014. And he was raising a niece and nephew because his sister died of a brain tumor. And her husband, oh my goodness, passed away to a heart attack 2 months after that. Wow. So he had custody of the niece and nephew, and the kids called him their Funkle and called him JJ. He was dating this Karen Reed lady for the last 2 years. She was an equity analyst and an adjunct professor at Bentley University. She lived in Mansfield but spent much of her time helping O'Keefe with the kids. When they were inside the bar, Officer O'Keefe saw some friends, and he and Karen walked over to join them. Chris Albert was there. That's Officer O'Keefe's neighbor. And his brother, Brian Albert, Chris Albert's brother, Brian Albert, was there. He also was a Boston Police Department officer. He works in the fugitive apprehension team. And let's see. And Brian's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe. So they'd all been raised in Canton, Massachusetts. Storm rolled in. Let's see here. They were having beers. Karen was drinking vodka sodas, lots of them. When it was midnight, and that's only an hour, it was nearly last call. Brian Albert announces that he's going home to have a beer with his son for his birthday. Told everybody to come on along. Karen, O'Keefe says, yeah, I'll go, but Karen says, I don't know if I want to go, but I'll give you a ride. So they went to Karen's Lexus SUV. She sat behind the wheel. O'Keefe plugged the address into the GPS, and they were off. They arrived at Albert's home. O'Keefe steps out of the car, and Karen Reed decides, I'm leaving. I'm going to go. And several hours later, Karen says she wakes up alone in the same clothes from the evening before, and she could see that a storm was coming down hard. Niece and nephew were, the niece was upstairs, the nephew was at a sleepover, but O'Keefe was nowhere to be found. Karen said she was going to call the sister-in-law to see, the sister-in-law of, who was it? The sister-in-law McCabe. Who was she? Brian's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, to see if she had seen O'Keefe. Karen didn't have her number, but she knew that the niece had it. Let's see. She did call her, and she had no idea where he was. She calls, that sister-in-law McCabe calls Chris Albert's wife, Julie, and asked if he had crashed at their house. And let's see. And then she called another friend of hers. None of them had seen Officer O'Keefe. I remember this case, and this is, I didn't realize who these people were when we were reading about this case, and I always thought that he was killed like in the bar itself. Okay, so this is interesting. So this Turtleboy is defending this woman. Let me see. Let's see. As they approach the house, let's see. So then people went out to look for him. So they went to that Albert's house, and it was 18 degrees Fahrenheit as they approached that house. Hang on. My computer's locking up. This is interesting. This is really interesting because now I remember, and I do remember looking this up before, that she's the one. But I had a totally different idea of how this happened. I thought they were leaving someplace and she backed up and he was in a snowbank, and she says she didn't know, but I thought that was at the restaurant. I didn't realize it was at this guy's house. I didn't realize that at all. So, let me see if I can get it's making me wait. It's telling me on my pages to wait. So yeah, I thought that was. So he's a Boston police officer. She's an analyst and an adjunct professor. It's 2022, right? Hold on, I have to shut some windows down here because I have too many things open and it's not appreciating it.
Early.
Who's screaming? Who is screaming in here? Okay, let me see now if we can go back. Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. All right, so they get to the house. And she sees that Officer O'Keefe's body lying in the snow. Karen raced towards him, dropped to her knees, and frantically cleared the snow from his torso. Then she lifted both of their shirts and laid on top of him, trying to warm his ice-cold body. Wow, 18 degrees. Okay, so the other people start giving him CPR and chest compressions. Blood was around his nose and mouth. His right eye was black and swollen. One of his black sneakers was missing. And they rushed over with blankets to warm him. They called 911. And Karen was screaming out the sister-in-law McCabe's and Robert's names over and over. He was pronounced dead at 7:50 a.m. Okay, and then when detectives began the investigation, Karen Reed was charged with manslaughter because they believed that she hit him with the Lexus. A year later, the court case would blow up news sites, became the focus of conspiracy theories. that ruined reputations, ended friendships, and divided the community. Okay, so this is Karen Reed. Okay, so Karen apparently was distraught, didn't know what happened. She was laying on her parents' couch, just in disbelief, not believing he was gone. She was asking for medication from her physician to help her sleep. And she also got an attorney, David Yannetti. She was cooperative with the police. But then eventually she was arrested. I'm not sure what day that was. She spent a night in jail. Officers took her to a holding cell inside the Stoughton courthouse. Her lawyer met her there, reviewed the charges with her, and the medical examiner said that several bloody abrasions that were etched into O'Keefe's right arm, 2 swollen black eyes, and a small cut above his right eye. He had a cut to the left side of his nose, and he had about a 2-inch laceration to the back of his head. He had multiple skull fractures, and those resulted in bleeding of the brain. His pancreas was dark red, which indicates hypothermia had contributed to his death. The official report said that O'Keefe and Karen had gotten into a fight. I'm confused on this. It says a witness interview. Hold on a minute. And so a witness was saying that Karen had said to that sister-in-law of that Albert guy that she last saw O'Keefe at the waterfall, but she and him got into a fight, and she didn't remember dropping him off at that other party, well, not party, where the Albert guy went to have a beer with his son. But according to another witness, they say Karen was so drunk that night that she said she didn't remember anything from the night before. And she had wondered if O'Keefe was dead or got hit by a plow. And Karen still seemed drunk that morning, according to this eyewitness report here. I'm not so certain. Let's see. Before O'Keefe's body was found, they said that Karen showed them her cracked right taillight, saying she had no idea how that happened. When an emergency responder asked Karen how O'Keefe had injured his face, the document said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. What? In addition, it stated that Kent police found a broken cocktail glass and multiple patches of blood in the snow where O'Keefe's body had been located that morning. Okay, so they're saying that she hit him with the car. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so she's hearing this while she's in a holding cell with her attorney. And no sooner has she hears this do they have to go in to that courtroom, to the district court, the Stoughton District Court. And there are families and dozens of friends and fellow Boston cops there packing the courtroom. Karen's mother was there. She was praying as her daughter was arraigned on manslaughter charges. Karen Reed entered a plea of not guilty, and afterwards her lawyer, Mr. Yannetti, told the reporters outside that his client was in shock and that O'Keefe's death had been an innocent accident and that Karen Reed had no criminal intent. She loved the man and she is devastated, quote, unquote. But it wasn't soon, it wasn't too soon afterwards. Then there was a whole different story going around, as is common in small towns and even in big towns. But the lawyer, Yannetti, said on his drive home from the courthouse, he got a call from a tipster. It was a man who had a gravelly voice and initially offered up a fake name, picked up the phone and told Yannetti that your client is innocent. John was beaten up by Brian Albert and his nephew. They broke his nose. And when O'Keefe didn't come to, he said that Brian and a federal agent dumped his body on the front lawn. Okay. But an attorney for the man that Yannetti identified as the tipster denies Yannetti's version. Yannetti didn't know what to think. Was this even possible? He thought about the party and the after party that night. He thought about Brian Albert, who is a prominent Boston cop. There's also a federal law enforcement officer at 34 Fairview that night. And that's Brian Higgins, who's a special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. And O'Keefe and Karen Reed were friendly with that agent. So let's see. So now when Yannetti got that information, Karen and her lawyer start to think that Karen is being framed for this. So they hired a PI. And let's see what they got from this PI. They offered up, and the PI found something, right? That a resident, Tom Beatty, is a friend of both O'Keefe and Karen Reed, said that his daughter was friends with Brian Albert's nephew, Colin, and that Colin had been at Fairview Road the night that O'Keefe died. So when Karen heard this, she started thinking back to a night in the spring of 2020 when the O'Keefe's home security alarm went off and he went out of bed. She went down the stairs after him, and they saw Colin Albert and several other teens in the front yard. And Colin was yelling, "Go F yourself," at O'Keefe, and "Get the F out of here." Oh, he said, get the F out of here. The next morning, Karen said they woke up to about 12 empty Bud Light cans, all in the bushes. They never called the police, she said, but there was bad blood between Colin and O'Keefe. And that Colin was the only person that O'Keefe ever had issues with. And after hearing that Colin was at that house, now she's thinking something happened. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so 3 months later, Karen has a couple that she was close with come over for dinner. They just testified before the grand jury in the case. And they told Karen that State Trooper Michael Proctor, that name sounds familiar too, another Canton resident and lead detective on the case, had said that he had known members of the Albert family for years. So now Karen thinks, wait, that doesn't sound kosher. That sounds like a conflict of interest. So when her dinner guests leave, she starts looking through Proctor's Facebook page. And then she found his sister through that. And she said she went through about 1,300 photos. And she found Proctor's sister's wedding, and it showed Colin Albert as the ring bearer, that kid that was on their lawn that time. And then she also found another picture of Proctor's parents and sister alongside members of Chris Albert's family. So now she's freaking out that there's conflict of interest, and really did something happen to O'Keefe? Is she being framed? All this stuff, right? So she's thinking like, oh gosh, could this be like bad blood with Colin, provided a motive for the fight outside the house, and then that Albert's German Shepherd even jumped in explaining those mysterious arm injuries. And then they put him outside to die, and they framed her. But what about her taillight? What about her taillight? But after the grand jury reviewed the prosecutor's evidence, they decided that there was sufficient evidence to charge Karen Reed with second-degree murder. Okay, and a second-degree murder means that she intentionally killed O'Keefe. So she was arrested again on June 9th, and Michael Proctor, with other officers, walked up to her home and arrested her again. And now she was facing a life sentence in prison. She had her bail set at $100,000, which she posted and went home to take a hot shower. And she knew she needed some bigger lawyers to help her. So she went to Alan Jackson, a prominent criminal defense lawyer in Los Angeles. He defended Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey. So they got on a conference call with her lawyer Yannetti and Jackson. And Jackson interrupted them and said, how the F are they saying he got these injuries? Okay, so they started to notice that times are wrong and all kinds of things are wrong on this case. Let's see. So it says that the lead detective, Michael Proctor, said that he arrived at Reed's parents' house at 4:30 p.m. and towed her car at 5:30, but the security footage showed that those times were wrong and that Karen's SUV was towed closer to 4:12 p.m. and it's a 78-minute discrepancy in the times. So they're surmising that 78-minute window would have given him time to break her taillight and plant the pieces at 34 Fairview. But didn't she say she noticed that? Didn't she say she noticed that before they went? Let's see. So that lawyer took her case and started on the defense team. They found a lot of suspicious things happening. Brian Albert got rid of his dog and put his house up for sale. And then there was a Google search on McCabe, the sister-in-law's phone. She Googled how long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. the night that O'Keefe was killed. And that was hours before he was found in the snow. Then she did the same search again at 6:23 a.m. and then again at 6:24 a.m. Okay, so then Jackson submitted a 92-page affidavit to the court in April of 2023. Or is it 2022? Did he have that? I'm going to have to look at that. Karen's attorneys knew it would help their efforts if someone in the media started paying attention to their version of events, and there was more than meets the eye. 5 days later, guess who starts to pay attention to it? That Turtleboy guy, Aidan Kearney. And let's see, let's see. He said he knew immediately this was the kind of story his followers would love. And he posted under that it was a Canton cover-up and it was a corrupt state trooper helps Boston cop cover up murder of fellow officer and frame his innocent girlfriend. That's what he said it was. And let's see. He implied that Karen Reed is completely innocent, wrongly charged by corrupt cops who would see her rot in prison in order to cover up a murder of a fellow officer. Allegedly, that's all. That's what he states. It did blow up. His website nearly crashed under the strain of the traffic. But the coverage was ripping the town of Canton apart. Okay, so I should have to look at the affidavit. So let's see what happened here. Let's see. So he did. This Turtleboy guy just continued to write about this case, one story after another, one story after another, one story after another, and his monthly page views skyrocketed. Okay, like 3-4 times what they normally were, and then he began to live stream it twice weekly on his YouTube channel, and his viewership increased from 3,000 views a video to 20,000. His viewership increased per episode. I got okay. By the time Karen Reed and her legal team arrived in court 2 weeks later, so public opinion turned in her favor. Ah, okay. So it was turning in her favor. And they went to court, and her new criminal defense lawyer, Jackson, presented the defense's alternative theory. Let's see what happened. Prosecutors poked holes in the defense theory and pushed back with their own evidence against Karen Reed. Okay, so let's see. All right, so Turtleboy started to just keep going with the case. He made a Facebook group, or was involved in a Facebook group about this. Okay. Trying to think here. Okay, so this is interesting. So Turtleboy went to that sister-in-law's daughter's high school lacrosse game, her high school lacrosse game in Billerica, Massachusetts, and he filmed and live streamed a confrontation between her and him. And he asked her, and I quote, "Do you think you could outsmart Karen Reed?" Well, she was sitting there with her oldest daughter and her friends, and she was ignoring him. And then he said, and I quote, "Are you worried what's going to happen to your family when you go to jail?" And then his audience started to harass her and send her Facebook messages telling her to end her life. Great. Okay, so apparently this guy let me see. Turtleboy was saying that he can do all things in an unconventional manner that other journalists are restricted from doing, and he loves being the center of attention and theatrical performing. This is what I was made to do, end quote. Let's see what else. So this is so what's going on with this lady, and what the heck? Okay, now here's something else. The timestamp on that lady's Google search for how long it takes to die in the cold, they said the timestamp was really, she was typing into the search bar of a tab that had been opened at 2:27 a.m. and left open, and they're saying that that does not mean she did the search at that time. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm trying to get to the updates here. Okay. Day Mercy. Followed up. He mentioned evidence that counters much of Karen Reed's alternative theory and pleaded with the public to stop harassing the crime witnesses. We try people in the court and not on the internet for a reason. The internet has no rules of evidence. The internet has no punishment for perjury, and the internet does not know all the facts. Okay, so what is going on with this case? Let me just see if anybody is even interested in this, or... Okay. Hi, Rich Guillaume. Oh my gosh. Where have you been? I've asked for you multiple times. You said you were sick and then we never saw you anymore. What happened? Wow, good to see you. That's crazy. I think I even sent you an email. What's going on? Are you okay? Is anybody following this Karen Reed Turtleboy stuff? And like what this has to do with what he's wanted for. Hi, she's like diamonds. Sometimes the public knows more than a jury, as in the OJ trial. Yeah. Who's following this Karen Reed thing? I remember this story when we covered it, but I didn't realize it was like this crazy. Hi, Jane. Hello, Margot. You are following it, She's Like Diamonds? So tell me, what do you believe? Do you believe that this Karen Reed is being framed for this Officer O'Keefe's murder? I mean, his death? I should say his death. Do you think she's being framed, or do you think she... Well, okay. So there's a couple. He's a Boston police officer. She's an adjunct professor and an analyst. I forget what kind of analyst. They go into a bar at 11 o'clock. There's other friends of theirs in Canton, Massachusetts, other members of the Boston PD, and what did they have? Some other family members of that Boston PD officer. The other one, his last name is Albert. And then at about 12 o'clock, this Albert one says, let's go home. Let me go have a drink with my son for his birthday. You want to come? Let's go over there. And so apparently Karen says, I don't know if I'm going to go, but I'll give you a ride there. ends up that she takes him to the Albert residence and drops him off and leaves, wakes up sometime later and realizes she's in the same clothing, and now this officer O'Keefe, which is the one that was with Karen Reed, had been raising his niece and his nephew because his sister died of a brain tumor, and then the sister's husband died, what was it, a heart attack 2 months after the sister. And so she wakes up and the niece is there, and she starts calling all over, and nobody has seen this officer O'Keefe. So they go, and I thought she said she showed them the taillight before they went there, but they find him outside the Albert house, like in a snowbank, and she immediately pulls up his shirt, pulls up her shirt, tries to lay on him to warm him up. They start CPR and a number of things, but he's pronounced dead at 7:50, I think it was, a.m. at the hospital. And the coroner says hypothermia contributed to his death, but he had a swollen lip and a black eye and some abrasions, and then he had a brain bleed and skull fractures. Yeah. And then they were going to they charged her with manslaughter, but then they charged her with second-degree murder. Meanwhile, her attorney was getting a tip that she was being framed or something, and then they got a real heavy hitter criminal attorney when she got charged, I believe, with second-degree murder. And now that attorney's saying these injuries don't make sense, and it's crazy. So you believe he was beaten? You believe she's being framed? Is that right? She's like diamonds. Yeah, you heard of this story? Yeah. See, we did too a little bit, but I forgot that it was this involved. Yeah, because I remember when it happened, and then I just don't remember. Maybe looking into it a little bit, but not getting all the players. This is kind of like a whiteboard case. She's like diamond. You believe she is being framed? And is that based on, what is that based on? Is that, do you follow this Turtleboy? Because this Turtleboy is now on the lookout. You know that, right? I know what all that is about. Let me see if I can find anything else. Yes? Okay. Rich. Why Rich is not talking to me? Rich Guillaume. Where are you? Okay, let me see here. All right, let's take a look. Okay, here's something, all right? Hold on a minute, let me make this. Let me take this down so I can make this where I can enlarge this over there. Why didn't that open over there? Okay. Okay. There we go. All right. So this, let's see, defendant's motion for order to present. Let's see. When was this? So this is wanting the production of all cell phones in the possession of or used by Brian Albert. That was the house that they found O'Keefe at between January 28th, 2022 and present, so that the defense expert Richard Green may conduct a forensic examination. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Let's take a look at this. New revelations from Jennifer McCabe's cell phone must reverse the trajectory of this case. Evidence obtained from an analysis of the complete forensic image of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone, which the Massachusetts State Police and Norfolk County District Attorney's Office withheld from the defense for more than a year, exculpates Ms. Reed and decisively implicates Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert, now that's the sister-in-law and brother-in-law, in the murder of John O'Keefe. In spite of the fact that O'Keefe was found dead on the front lawn of Boston police officer Brian Albert, a highly trained boxer and fighter with deep familial and personal ties to the Canton Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police, law enforcement has utterly failed to treat Mr. Albert and his family members who were present on the night in question as suspects. Instead, law enforcement immediately arrested Ms. Reed, based in no small part on incriminating statements attributed to her by one of the actual conspirators in O'Keefe's murder, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe. As this court is well aware, Ms. Reed has always maintained that she dropped O'Keefe off at Brian Albert's residence at 34 Fairview Road just after midnight on January 29th, 2023, and frustratedly left without him when he failed to answer any of her calls, presuming that he had proceeded into the house for the party. Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, and Matthew McCabe, all of whom were present at the Albert residence on the night in question, have maintained that O'Keefe never entered the residence. Okay. They all similarly claimed that they had no reason to suspect any sort of foul play until O'Keefe's body was discovered the next morning in Brian Albert's front lawn at 6:04 a.m. by Ms. Reed and Ms. McCabe. Previously withheld information and data obtained from an analysis of Jennifer McCabe's iPhone 11 paints a much darker picture of what actually transpired on January 29, 2022. An analysis of the complete forensic image of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone by computer forensics expert Richard Green establishes that Ms. McCabe, the government's seminal witness, Googled how long to die in cold at 2:27 a.m. on January 29, 2022, exactly 2 hours after O'Keefe was last seen walking towards the Albert residence by Ms. Reed. How long to die in cold, Jennifer McCabe explicitly told law enforcement that she did not think much of O'Keefe's failure to enter the residence that night and assumed that O'Keefe and Ms. Reed simply decided to go home. Interview of Jennifer McCabe said yet 3 hours before Jennifer McCabe had any reason to suspect O'Keefe had gone home with Ms. Reed, 3 hours before she inserted herself into Ms. Reed's search for O'Keefe and delayed her return to the Alberts' residence, and 3 hours before her discovery of his lifeless body in the cold snow of her brother-in-law's front lawn, Ms. McCabe had only one thing on her mind: how long does it take to die in the cold? What's even more shocking is that the very next day, before turning her phone over to law enforcement, Ms. McCabe took calculated steps to purge her phone of this inculpatory search, and at the same time attempted to delete her communications with Brian Albert and to remove a screenshot of his contact information from her phone, which she obviously shared with someone that morning. In light of this new information, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office should immediately do what's right and file a novel prosequi, short of that just result, Ms. Reed's constitutional right to defend herself against these false allegations demand that she should be... I can't speak tonight. Where am am I now? I lost myself. To file a null proseque, short of that just result, Mrs. Reed's constitutional right to defend herself against these false allegations demand that she be permitted to obtain the critical information that law enforcement failed to obtain and preserve from the outset, namely communications and location information with the actual perpetrators of this crime, Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert. The requested information will undoubtedly further implicate Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert, and others in the murder of O'Keefe and the sinister cover-up that resulted in these false charges being brought against Ms. Reed. The supporting facts. Ms. Reed stands charged with the following crimes arising out of the death of her late boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Murder in the second degree in violation of MGL 265 S1 count 1, manslaughter while under the influence of alcohol in violation of MGL C 265 13.5 count 2, and leaving the scene of a personal injury and death in violation of MGL blah blah blah. The two theories advanced by the Commonwealth in support of the filing of these charges are as follows. 1. Ms. Reed became suddenly angry with O'Keefe outside the home of Boston Police Officer Brian Albert and reversed into him with her vehicle, shattering her tail light by striking his head before fleeing the scene. And Ms. Reed suddenly became angry with O'Keefe outside Brian Albert's residence and struck O'Keefe in the head with a cocktail glass before reversing into him with her vehicle, shattering her taillight and fleeing the scene. And both theories are largely born out of statements made by Jennifer McCabe to the police. O'Keefe was found unresponsive in the early morning hours of January 29, 2022, in the front yard of the home of the Boston police officer Brian Albert. Contrary to the Commonwealth's theories, photographs of O'Keefe suggest that he was beaten severely and left for dead, having sustained blunt force injuries to both sides of his face as well as the back of his head. In addition to suffering numerous defense wounds on his hands consistent with a brutal fight, O'Keefe also suffered a cluster of deep scratches and puncture wounds to his right upper arm and forearm. These injuries to O'Keefe's right arm are consistent with bite marks and or claw marks from an animal, more specifically a dog, as discussed more fully in the defendant's motion for order pursuant to Massachusetts R. Criminal P-17, directed to Canton Animal Control and the Canton Clerk's Office, which is incorporated herein by reference. Circumstantial evidence strongly suggests Brian Albert's German Shepherd K9 is responsible for the injuries to O'Keefe's arm. 4 months after O'Keefe's death, Brian Albert went to great lengths to dispose of critical evidence by making sure Chloe, his family dog of 7 years, simply disappeared. That's weird. The events that transpired the night before O'Keefe's death on January 29, 2022, have always been largely undisputed. This is so weird because I'm covering this. I kept thinking that there was a wall behind him and it was at the bar. So different from when I first heard about this. Okay, it's always been largely undisputed. The evidence incontrovertibly establishes that on the evening of January 28, 2022, the decedent, O'Keefe, his girlfriend, Karen Reed, Brian and Nicole Albert, Jennifer and Matthew McCabe, Brian Albert's sister-in-law and friend of Mr. O'Keefe, along with several other individuals, met and enjoyed drinks at the Waterfall Bar and Grill in Canton, Massachusetts. As the bar was closing around midnight, the parties discussed going to Nicole and Brian Albert's residence, located close by at 34 Fairview Road, to continue the party and celebrate their son, Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday. Although O'Keefe and Ms. Reed were not well acquainted with the Alberts, the invite was extended to them by the O'Keefe's longtime friend, Jennifer McCabe. Shortly after midnight, the Alberts, Brian, Nicole, and Caitlin, the McCabes, Jennifer, and Matthew, and Brian Higgins, close friend of Brian Albert and the federal agent with the Massachusetts Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives with an office inside the Canton Police Department, left the bar in their respective vehicles and drove to the Albert residence for the after party. Video surveillance footage and witness statements confirm that Ms. Reed and O'Keefe left the waterfall after midnight and departed together in Ms. Reed's black Lexus SUV. As set forth in the attached affidavit of Richard Green, location data obtained from O'Keefe's cell phone establishes that O'Keefe's cell phone first pings in the neighborhood near the Albert residence at 12:19 a.m. and then pings again at or near the Albert residence at 12:24 a.m. Witnesses gave conflicting accounts regarding whether O'Keefe actually exited the vehicle and made his way into the Albert residence. Ryan Nagel, one of the only percipient witnesses present on the night in question, who is not closely related to the Alberts, arrived at the Albert residence just after O'Keefe and Ms. Reed to pick up his sister Julie Nagel. According to Mr. Nagel's interview with police, he recalled seeing a set of headlights on a mid-sized black SUV coming from the opposite direction as he approached Fairview Road and yielded to the vehicle, allowing it to make a right-hand turn onto Fairview as their F-150 then followed. Ryan Nagel confirmed that he did not observe any erratic operation by the SUV at any point while in his presence. Both vehicles parked outside the Albert residence. He stated that his friends remained parked outside the driveway for approximately 5 minutes, at which point his sister came out of the Albert residence and told him she was going to spend the night and no longer needed a ride. At some point, Mr. Nagel told police that he observed the SUV pull forward towards the edge of the Albert property line. When he and his friends left shortly thereafter, he observed a young woman sitting alone in a black SUV outside the residence as he pulled away from the house. He further reported that he did not observe any damage to her vehicle or hear screams or otherwise observe any altercation between Miss Reed and O'Keefe. Ms. Reed has always maintained that she dropped O'Keefe off at the Albert residence and waited for him to scope out the residence and make sure that they were at the correct house and weren't imposing. After calling O'Keefe several times and becoming frustrated with his failure to answer and otherwise respond to her, Ms. Reed eventually left, presuming O'Keefe had proceeded into the house for the party. Conversely, Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, and Matthew McCabe have all maintained that O'Keefe never entered the Fairview residence. Thankfully, because the Commonwealth finally produced a forensic image of O'Keefe's phone to the defense, albeit a full year after the phone was taken into law enforcement custody, and the court does not have to rely on the statements of witnesses as set forth in the attached affidavit of Richard Green, an expert in computer forensics and electronic data analysis. Data stored on O'Keefe's cell phone established that O'Keefe, in fact, did get out of the car and walk somewhere in the early morning of January 29, 2022, at a point in time when his location was consistent with being in the vicinity of the Albert residence. As defense expert Richard Green sets forth in the affidavit location data obtained from O'Keefe's phone established that his phone pinged in the neighborhood near the Albert residence, and again at the location of the Albert residence at approximately 12:24:28, immediately following his arrival at the Albert residence between 12:21:10 and 12:24:37. Apple Health recorded O'Keefe taking 80 steps, traveling approximately 87.74 meters and climbing the equivalent of 3 floors, with his location data pinging in close proximity of the Albert residence. The only reasonable interpretation of O'Keefe's Apple Health data is that he entered the Albert residence, which has 3 floors. Apple Health again recorded O'Keefe taking 36 steps with no elevation gain. O'Keefe did not walk the the length of 3 swimming pools and climb the equivalent of 3 flights of stairs by circling and climbing on top of Karen Reed's vehicle. Okay, so let me just get back to where is our live stream. Hang on a minute here. Okay, just wanted to be on our live stream, so I make sure. As set forth in the attached affidavit of computer forensics expert Richard Green. Oh, hold on a minute. Before the Commonwealth turned over the complete forensic copy of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone, the defense was forced to rely on its own investigative resources to attempt to discern what transpired after O'Keefe entered the Albert residence just after 12:20 a.m. By all accounts, Ms. Reed left the Albert residence in her vehicle shortly after her arrival and returned to the O'Keefe's home located on One Meadows Avenue. The only statements regarding the events that transpired inside the Albert residence after O'Keefe, well, couldn't they have looked for surveillance video anywhere along the way that would show that broken taillight if she had a broken taillight? What? Rich Guillaume, you stepped away. Did you see the message? No. What message? What message, Rich? I don't see the message. Anyway, let me see here. So what about that broken taillight? Those of you that follow the case, what about that broken taillight? Did they ever find any surveillance video to support that it was not there? Anything? I wonder about that. Okay. So let's see. By all accounts, Ms. Reed left the Albert residence in her vehicle shortly after her arrival, returned to the O'Keefe's home. The only statements regarding the events that transpired inside the Albert residence after O'Keefe took his last steps at 12:31 are the self-serving statements of Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, Brian Albert, and his close friend, federal ATF agent with an office at the Canton Police Department, Brian Higgins. As set forth in the attached affidavit of computer forensics expert Richard Green, the complete forensic extraction of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone data from January 29, 2022, which includes exculpatory information that was glaringly missing from Trooper Guarino's full file system. Trooper Guarino. Full file system extraction of the same phone reveals their lies. I know that, Guarino. Guarino. I know that name. It's interesting. On February 2nd, 2022, mere days after O'Keefe's death, Massachusetts State Police Trooper Okay, now there's just a Trooper Keefe. Forensically imaged Jennifer McCabe's iPhone 11. Rather than simply turning over a copy of the forensic image of the phone to the defense for analysis on May 31st, 2022, Trooper Guarino conducted his own forensic analysis of the cell phone and prepared a Cellbrite extraction report which purported to be a full file system extraction from Jennifer McCabe's iPhone 11 between January 29th and January 30th, 2022. The Commonwealth withheld the forensic image of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone and instead produced Trooper Guarino's full file system extraction report to the defense on August 12, 2022. Notably, Trooper Guarino's full file system self-extraction report of Jennifer McCabe's iPhone 11 failed to show any search history information entered by Ms. McCabe on January 29, 2022, including her incriminating 2:27 a.m. search for how long to die in the cold. Okay, I've had several health issues and I've been gone for a while off YouTube. I had to log off. I will send you an email soon. Okay, well, I knew you were having health issues and I was calling out to you and hoping you were okay. I'm glad you stopped by. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Everything good. Good health, and I hope everything's doing well. Send me an email. Bye, everyone. Happy holidays. Don't be a stranger. Okay. After numerous discovery requests and the filing of a motion to compel, Deputy District Attorney Adam Lally finally agreed to produce the full forensic image of Jennifer McCabe's iPhone 11 on February 8, 2023, a full year after O'Keefe's death. Information obtained from a deleted cache of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone begins to unravel what occurred after Ms. Reed left O'Keefe at the Albert residence on January 29, 2022. Hey, Debbie D., good to see you. And the web of lies that resulted in the arrest and prosecution of Ms. Reed. According to Ms. McCabe's initial interview with Trooper Proctor on January 29, 2022, at 11:30 a.m., when the events were still fresh in her mind, Ms. McCabe claimed that she left the Albert residence with her husband at approximately 1:30 a.m. and went home. However, as set forth in Richard Green's affidavit, a forensic analysis of her cell phone shows that Jennifer McCabe actually left the Albert residence at 1:47 a.m. Moreover, she didn't drive directly with her husband as she initially claimed. Instead, the McCabes made the executive decision at 2 a.m. in a snowstorm to drop off two of Brian Albert Jr.'s friends who were in attendance at the party, Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson, passing O'Keefe's residence at 1 Meadows Avenue on their way home. The McCabes clearly wanted to know whether Ms. Reed would be home to notice if and when O'Keefe failed to return home that morning, or if that privilege would be left to his two adopted children. After passing by the deceased's home at 1 Meadows Avenue location, data obtained from Jennifer McCabe's cell phone shows she arrived back at her own home, 12 Country Lane, at 2:12. Approximately 10 minutes later at 2:23 a.m., Apple Health recorded Ms. McCabe climb one flight of stairs, presumably to go upstairs to her bedroom. When questioned by law enforcement as to why O'Keefe never made it into the party, McCabe told law enforcement she did not think of it and thought that Ms. Reed and O'Keefe just decided not to come in. However, at 2:27 a.m. that morning, after making it safely home and climbing the stairs to the privacy of her bedroom, the first and only information Ms. McCabe desperately needed to Google was how long it takes to die in the cold. Jennifer McCabe didn't sleep that night. Contrary to her assertions to law enforcement, she obviously had a lot on her mind. Data taken from her Apple Watch establishes that she was up much of the night, pacing at 2:32. And Jennifer McCabe took 22 steps at 3:50. She took 24 steps at 3:51. She took 6 steps at 4:55. She took 24 steps at Indeed, Apple Health data obtained from Jennifer McCabe shows that her heart rate reached 11-hour low at 12:49, a high at 6:42 a.m. Meanwhile, Ms. Reed, the only person with reason to believe O'Keefe was actually missing, grew increasingly concerned with O'Keefe's failure to return home to his children on January 29, 2022, and answer her many phone calls and text messages. After a fitful night of sleep, Ms. Reed began frantically calling O'Keefe's friends shortly before 5 a.m. in an effort to locate him. Jennifer McCabe, who had stayed out drinking until 2:20, was conveniently awake to answer Ms. Reed's early morning call. But Jennifer McCabe couldn't leave it at that. After picking up at 4:53 a.m. a phone call from Miss Reed, an acquaintance, and O'Keefe's daughter Kaylee, the overly helpful Ms. McCabe jumped out of bed and inserted herself into the search for O'Keefe, making every effort to delay Ms. Reed in returning to the Albert residence to look for him and ensuring that she was in control of the narrative provided to police when O'Keefe's body was discovered. During that call, Ms. McCabe suggested that a hysterical Karen Reed drive all the way across town at 5 a.m. to her residence located at 12 Country Lane so they could go look for O'Keefe together. Once Karen Reed arrived at McCabe's residence, Ms. McCabe insisted they drive in Ms. Reed's car back to O'Keefe's residence so that they could meet O'Keefe's friend Kerry Roberts and research O'Keefe's apartment to make sure he was not home, buying time to make sure John wouldn't live to tell this court what happened to him. After confirming, unsurprisingly, that O'Keefe was not at the home and allowing her family members sufficient time to situate O'Keefe's body, these three women drove together in Ms. Roberts' car back to the Albert residence to look for O'Keefe. And the other thing I'm going to say, this was a neighborhood. No one had any kind of cameras at all. I wonder. Hello, White Angel. Haven't seen you in a long time. Merry Christmas. That's interesting. Where, if they were situating his body in the snow, wouldn't a camera have picked that up? Okay. As the women pulled up to Brian Albert's house shortly after 6 a.m., Ms. Reed spotted an unconscious O'Keefe lying face up on his back in the front yard of Brian Albert's residence. While Miss Reed and Miss Roberts raced to him and attempted to render aid, Ms. McCabe curiously remained in the vehicle, dialed 911, and began controlling the narrative. In her initial statement to Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator and close family friend of the Alberts and the McCabes, Jennifer McCabe attributes a number of statements to Karen Reed that quickly make her the prime suspect. When asked to describe John and Karen's appearance at the waterfall, she describes John as wearing a baseball hat, jeans, and sneakers, but describes Karen as walking into the bar holding a drinking glass. Ms. McCabe falsely tells Trooper Proctor that Ms. Reed claims she went home alone that night and last saw John at the waterfall bar, and that she had to correct Karen and tell her that they all went to the Albert residence. Ms. McCabe tells Trooper Proctor that while they were searching for O'Keefe, Karen repeatedly asked, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" Ms. McCabe falsely tells Trooper Proctor that Karen began screaming to pull over because she saw O'Keefe's body before he was actually visible from the roadway, and that she and Ms. Roberts didn't know what she was talking about because there was heavy snow, falsely implying that Ms. Reed knew exactly where O'Keefe's body would be found. Okay. These aren't the only statements Ms. McCabe falsely attributes to Ms. Reed, according to Nicole Albert's statement to Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Uriah Buchanan. She and her husband, Brian Albert, were still in bed in the morning of January 29th when her sister Jen came into the room and shared with her what transpired outside, and that John was found deceased on the edge of her property by the street in the snow. Nicole Albert reported to the police that she never left her home to see what was going on outside, and by the time she came downstairs, the Canton Fire Department must have already transported both John and Karen from the scene. However, Cell records established that immediately after disconnecting with 911 dispatch, Jennifer McCabe actually made 2 calls to her sister, Nicole Albert's cell phone, aka Coco, at 6:07 and 6:08 a.m., both of which were answered by someone and were subsequently deleted. Thus, Brian and Nicole Albert were among the first individuals to be notified that O'Keefe was lying unresponsive mere feet away from their front lawn, and in spite of being in such close proximity, made no effort to go outside and assist or otherwise investigate the emergency that was unfolding on their doorstep. Either Nicole is lying or Jennifer McCabe was on the phone with her husband, Brian Albert. Either way, Brian and Nicole Albert chose to sequester themselves in their home, distancing themselves from the investigation rather than check on O'Keefe, assist in life-saving efforts, speak with responding officers, or otherwise investigate the circumstances surrounding the fact that their family member had just discovered the body of a Boston police officer on their front lawn. At 6:23 a.m., Jennifer McCabe makes an outgoing call to her brother-in-law, Brian Albert, which he doesn't answer, and then she subsequently deletes the record of that call. Okay. Less than a minute after failing to reach Brian Albert at 6:23:49, Jennifer McCabe begins panicking and opening an article in her Safari application by Helpline entitled, "How long does it take to digest food?" What an unbelievably odd and incriminating thing to search immediately upon finding a dead body. Significantly, the presence of food particles in a decedent's stomach and upper small intestine serve as a source of information for pathologists in calculating time of death. Almost immediately thereafter, Jennifer McCabe tries to overwrite her incriminating search from earlier that morning regarding how long does it take to die in the cold by re-entering it in a more appropriate time. Supposedly, after she supposedly finds O'Keefe's body in the snow. However, in all the commotion and in her haste to cover up her incriminating 2:27 a.m. search about how long it would take O'Keefe to die in the cold, she accidentally searches how long to die in the cold. Then at 6:24, she enters a second search, this time repeating her search for how long to die in the cold. In case her sloppy attempt to cover up her incriminating Google search wasn't enough, on February 1st, in a transparent effort to conceal her own criminality and blame it on Ms. Reed, Ms. McCabe inexplicably tells police for the first time that while she was seated alone with Ms. Reed together in the car after law enforcement arrived on the scene, we prayed the Our Father together. Karen then immediately yelled at me 2 times to Google, "How long do you have to be left outside to die from hypothermia?" Jennifer McCabe knew how devastating it would be if the wrong person in law enforcement discovered that she Googled how long to die in the cold hours before she claims to have found O'Keefe's body in the snow. Thus, in an attempt to deflect suspicion and justify this incredibly incriminating Google search, she reverted to blaming everything on Miss Reed. Unfortunately for Ms. McCabe, her decision to Google how long to die in the snow at 2:27 a.m., 2 hours after O'Keefe made his way into the Albert residence, was hers and hers alone. Shockingly, in what can only be described as a clear attempt by Ms. McCabe to frame Ms. Reed, Richard Green's forensic analysis of Jennifer McCabe's phone reveals that Ms. McCabe took affirmative steps to delete the 2:27:40 a.m. search for how long to die in cold, but did not attempt to remove the 2 other subsequent searches she attributed to Ms. Reed. Okay. The defense is not suggesting that Jennifer McCabe killed O'Keefe and covered up his murder alone. The communications and contacts that Jennifer McCabe intentionally deleted from her phone in the 4 days between O'Keefe's death and her decision to turn her phone over to law enforcement for analysis on February 2nd are key to uncovering what transpired on January 29th of 2022. As set forth more fully below, Jennifer McCabe intentionally sanitized her phone of the contacts with Brian and Nicole Albert on January 29th, 2022, before turning her phone over to law enforcement. The only reasonable inference as to why Jennifer McCabe would intentionally tamper with evidence she knew she was providing to law enforcement is because, like her 2:27 a.m. Google search, she and Brian Albert have taken calculated steps to hide incriminating information. Hold on one second here. I've got to do one thing here. Okay, let me just do this real quick here. Real quick, like. I have to add something here. I'm just changing my, okay, sorry, I just had to update my title because we're talking about this case and I think I should put it there so that people know. Okay, as explained in the attached affidavit of Richard Green, the Cellbrite analysis of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone recovered various contacts and communications which were deleted by Ms. McCabe on January 29th. For example, at 12:53 a.m., just hours after O'Keefe was found dead in Brian Albert's front lawn, Jennifer McCabe deleted a screenshot of Brian Albert's contact information, which was saved in her cell phone as Uncle Brian A. Then she deleted a phone call she made to Brian Albert at the same number on January 29th at 6:23 a.m. Ms. McCabe's attempts to sanitize her phone of any contacts with Brian Albert on the morning in question are not the only instances of witnesses associated with this case attempting to prevent Brian Albert's number from being turned over to the defense and for appearing in official law enforcement records. For example, on October 25th, 2022, the Commonwealth produced to the defense a copy of the initial Canton Police Department incident report with a purported creation date of January 29th, 2022 at 8:24 hours. Apparently unbeknownst to the individual that altered this report, a hard copy of that very same report dated January 29th, 2022 at 8:24 hours had already been provided to counsel for Ms. Reed at her arraignment 7 months prior on February 2nd, 2022. The two Canton Police Department incident reports are almost identical and purport to have been created and generated on the exact same date at the exact same time. However, the report produced on October 25th, 2022, the altered report, is different from the report produced months earlier on February 2nd, 2022, the original report, in which two very significant respects. One, the altered report swaps the single crime scene photo included with the report from a photograph that was taken on the morning of January 29th, 2022 by Canton PD, where there were clearly no pieces of Ms. Reed's taillight at the crime scene, to a crime scene photograph taken February 3rd, 2022 by Massachusetts State Police when Trooper Proctor purportedly recovered pieces of her taillight at the scene days later after he had already taken possession of her vehicle. And the altered report replaces Brian Albert's primary cell phone number, the very same number Jennifer McCabe deleted from her cell phone belonging to Uncle Brian, with a completely different number. Thus, the witnesses in this case have made repeated attempts to conceal, hide, and erase any reference to Brian Albert's cell phone number in connection with this case. The revelation obtained from Jennifer McCabe's cell phone, taken alone, make Jennifer McCabe and Brian McCabe prime suspects in this case. However, actions taken by Brian Albert and his family to destroy evidence and engage in witness intimidation over the course of the last year should be extremely troubling to this case and unquestionably further support the necessity of immediately issuing a summons for Brian Albert's cell phone and cell records. Okay. First, as set forth more fully in defendant's motion for order pursuant to Mass, directed to Canton Animal Control and the Canton Clerk's Office, the defense has obtained evidence that Brian Albert rehomed his canine German Shepherd dog Chloe to some unknown location in the months following O'Keefe's death. Considerable circumstantial evidence suggests that Brian Albert's dog was responsible for the scratch or bite marks. Why couldn't they get DNA from those scratch or bite marks on O'Keefe's right arm? It is not a coincidence that Brian Albert got rid of his family dog of 7 years due to a reported violent skin piercing incident 4 months after O'Keefe's death. Second, on September 22, 2022, defense counsel for the first time publicly accused the Alberts in open court of being implicated in the murder of O'Keefe. On September 23, 2022, Judge Krupp ordered Deputy District Attorney Adam Lally to notify, among others, Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Nicole Albert, Matthew McCabe, and Colin Albert not to alter, delete, destroy, or in any way manipulate any of the electronic data associated with any cell phones used by the Alberts McCabes in and around the time of O'Keefe's death. Less than 2 weeks later, on October 16th, Brian Albert's brother Tim Albert publicly threatened to ruin anyone who crossed his family. I stand by my family 100%. You don't F with them. You do, and I won't hesitate to make you the most miserable person. It's a promise. Tim Albert is a grown man with 2 brothers in law enforcement. Brian Albert is the head of the fugitive unit for the Boston Police Department, and Kevin Albert is a lead detective with the Canton Police Department. The Alberts are not above the law. If Tim Albert has no problem publicly threatening and intimidating witnesses on Facebook because his brother Brian Albert was accused of being implicated in O'Keefe's murder, it's terrifying to imagine what the Alberts are capable of behind closed doors. As of the filing date of this motion, 6 months after the original post, Tim Albert's threats remain displayed on public profiles. Third, law enforcement never conducted a search of the Albert residence and or their fenced-in backyard to determine whether there was any evidence that an altercation had occurred between O'Keefe and or any of the partygoers on the night in question. On November 17, 2022, mere months after the defense first publicly accused the Alberts of being implicated in O'Keefe's murder, Brian Albert made the decision to list his childhood home and longtime residence for sale, which has been in the Albert family for multiple generations. According to public records, the Alberts accepted an offer on the house exactly 3 months after it was listed. The sale is currently pending. Brian Albert's decision to transfer documented ownership of his longtime family residence is yet another evidence of consciousness of guilt. Okay, all right. Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert have engaged in a demonstrable pattern of attempting to manipulate, conceal, and destroy evidence that might expose their involvement in O'Keefe's murder. As discussed below, Ms. Reed's constitutional right to obtain exculpatory evidence and defend herself at trial require that this court issue a pretrial summons for Mr. Albert's cell phone and corresponding cell carrier records for the critical 9-day period, commencing January 28, 2022 and ending February 5, 2022, so that the defense can uncover why the witness In this case, we're being so intent on preventing Brian Albert's cell phone number from making it into the hands of the defense and official law enforcement documents. Similarly, Ms. Reed is requesting call data records from Jennifer McCabe's cell phone carrier for a 6-day period spanning January 28th, 2022 until she turned her phone over to law enforcement on February 2nd, 2022, which will undoubtedly reveal text messages and calls that Ms. McCabe deleted from her phone in an effort to interfere with the investigation. Okay, so now they're saying the argument. A court may issue a pretrial summons for records in the possession of third parties if the parties seeking the summons show that the documents or information is evidentiary and relevant. The documents or information is not otherwise procurable reasonably in advance of trial by exercise of due diligence. The party cannot properly prepare for trial without the inspection of the records or information before trial, and that the late disclosure of the information might unreasonably delay trial, and the application is made in good faith and is not intended as a general fishing expedition. As explained below, the categories of records sought by this motion meet all 4 prongs of the Lambron test. Okay, so now saying that the records requested are evidentiary and relevant. And they're saying here Ms. Reed's defense is predicated in no small part on a third-party culpability defense, as discussed above, and in Section D, the defense has uncovered significant reliable evidence that not only exculpates Ms. Reed, but also inculpates Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert. Previously withheld evidence supports Ms. Reed's third-party culpability defense and establishes that the government seminal witness Jennifer McCabe Googled how long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. on January 29, 2022, just 2 hours after Ms. Reed last saw O'Keefe exit her vehicle and walk towards the Albert residence. Moreover, the only reasonable interpretation of the 80 steps and 3 flights of elevation gain recorded by Apple Health on O'Keefe's cell phone immediately after his arrival at the Albert residence suggests that he did in fact make it into the Albert residence that night, directly contravening Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert's claims to the police that he never made it inside. The above reliable and data-driven evidence undeniably suggests that Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert are the third parties responsible for O'Keefe's death, and that the inculpatory information will be found in the cellular data and records requested. As discussed above, there is undeniable proof that Jennifer McCabe took efforts to sanitize her phone in an attempt to prevent the defense from obtaining information that would have exculpated Ms. Reed and inculpated the McCabe-Albert family before she turned it over to the police. As if the 2:27 a.m. Google search for how long to die in the cold weren't inculpatory enough in its own right, the forensic analysis of Ms. McCabe's cell phone establishes that she took affirmative steps to destroy evidence by deleting her 2:27 a.m. search, deleting her communications with Brian Albert on January 29th, and deleting evidence that she shared Brian Albert's contact information with someone before turning her phone over to the Massachusetts State Police. Brian Albert's cell phone communications and location data spanning from January 28th to February 5th will unquestionably lead to relevant admissible evidence that will shed light on Brian Albert and others' involvement in the O'Keefe murder and the efforts that were made in the aftermath by the McCabe's Alberts to cover up their crimes. Moreover, Ms. McCabe's cell phone carrier records from January 28, 2022, the night that McCabe invited John to the Albert residence for drinks, to February 2nd, 2022, the day she turned her phone over to law enforcement, will allow the defense to obtain a record of any calls and or text messages that were successfully deleted from her phone during the relevant time period. Okay, so let's see. So they asked for all of that, and that's interesting. So we'll have to go in and see, but so let's just look at Turtleboy's got a BOLO out. Now let's see why he has a BOLO out. It's for let's see. It's for domestic assault and battery. Okay, it says Aiden Kearney, aka Turtleboy, BOLO for domestic assault and battery confirmed. Reports that Kearney was visiting a romantic partner who he is also a witness in a criminal case and attempted to get her to manipulate evidence before fleeing. The arrest status remains unclear. Interesting, interesting. Okay, so 11 hours ago, it looks like he was out there screaming, "Free Karen Reed, free Karen Reed." Okay, so someone said yesterday that Turtleboy called the cops saying he was coming to turn himself in. He still hasn't. Today he put his victim's name in a scheduled live stream, later canceled it. Now he's supposedly disseminating wiretappings of that victim. Well, wiretappings in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are not a joke. So that's going to be a problem. Let's see. Okay, so apparently he's calling on for witnesses to be harassed, according to people. I don't know. He pled not guilty to witness intimidation. He's facing 16 charges, including intimidation, after allegedly contacting witnesses in Karen Reed's case. And then they said that Aiden Kearney is wanted for domestic assault and battery that occurred in Medfield. Turtleboy, let's see, intimidation, threats of reputational harm via blog, and promises to hurt people you love are his usual tactics. Now he's taken more extreme measures. That's according to someone from the Karen Reed case. Someone said that this case is the definition of reasonable doubt. Regardless of what side you're on, there is absolutely no way that 12 jurors can say that she is 100% guilty. This is the standard that our courts are supposed to uphold, and unless they are hiding compelling evidence, not guilty. Okay, so that, hold on a minute, I've got to get my vitamins, but what do you guys think about this? Huh? I better charge my phone too, hang on. And I've got to get my vitamins. What did you get to my vitamins? I'll be right there. Talk amongst yourself. I've got to stay healthy. Oh. I'm going to play word cookies and then probably going to go take a siesta for the evening. Tomorrow I have to go to the doctor for that body scan thing, so that's glorious and fun. And sorry, just a bunch of about 15 more pills. Okay, so I guess there are many that feel she is being framed. So what date is this from? Let's see what's going on in the Karen Reed case. Okay, a judge ruled in November on evidence in the Karen Read case. The state Supreme Judicial Court ruled that Karen's lawyers cannot view the phone records of Brian Albert, who lived at the Fairfield home, but they are allowed to see the phone records of Jennifer McCabe. And it says Reed's lawyers have appealed to a higher court after a Norfolk County judge rejected the request. Karen Read faces murder and manslaughter charges. She has maintained her innocence, and the case has attracted widespread attention with allegations of a cover-up. Canton votes to audit police department amid Karen Read case. Residents in Canton have voted to launch an independent investigation into the town's police department, due in part to the case involving Karen Read. Wow. A special town meeting article passed Monday night by a 903 to 800 margin. A separate motion for a vote of no confidence in the Board of Selectmen and Canton Police Department has been delayed. The vote comes in part following the 2022 death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Last week, Karen Read won an appeal before the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. The ruling granted Read access to phone records from one of the people her legal team argues is responsible for O'Keefe's death. A trial in Read's case has been scheduled for March 2024. Huh. Interesting, right? Well, I'd like to find out about surveillance footage. Cameras in the area. And what they showed. If they showed him in the snow, did they show any action around there? Carolyn, did you get a chance to mail? Yes, everything went out to you, White Angel. Everything is out to you. Everything is on its way. It was on its way. Hey, Alyssa, how are you? So this is quite a case, huh? Quite a case. Now, this Turtleboy, I don't know what, I think the stuff that's going on with him is revolving somebody he was in a relationship with, this new stuff. So I'm not sure what the deal is on any of that. Let me see something now. I gotta look at something. Okay, well, how about this? Okay. Okay. All right, let me go back to okay, let me get over. I was just going to say something about an elevator. Okay. What was I looking for? Oh, I know what I was looking for. Okay. I was wondering if surveillance cameras. Yeah, okay, so they're asking for it. Let's see. New defense filing. Let me see. This is back in the day. When was this? Free trial motion security camera footage she believes will support her allegations. Okay. So let's see what this says. During the course of the grand jury proceedings, including questioning of Brian Albert, ADA Lally did not ask a single witness who appeared in connection with those proceedings whether there were security cameras installed at the Albert residence, i.e. the crime scene. The only question regarding whether the Alberts owned a security camera that may have captured the crime scene was posed by a juror after ADA Lally completed his questioning of the third-party culprit, Brian Albert. The following is a true and correct recitation of the question and answer that occurred at the close of Brian Albert's testimony before the grand jury. Juror: I don't know, but are there security cameras? ADA Lally: let me follow up with that. So what, if anything, did you receive as a Christmas gift this past Christmas from your wife, Nicole, in reference to cameras in your house? Brian Albert: I received for a present some type of camera. It's not a ring, but something along those lines. It might be a Nest or something like that. So Nest, I'm not sure of that name brand, but ADA Lally. And at the time of this day, January 29th, had you gotten around to installing that yet? Brian Albert: no, we never installed it. ADA Lally: okay, seeing no other questions, I would thank that witness and ask that he be excused. Thank you very much. 6. I am informed and believe that the requested records and information in the possession of Google LLC are evidentiary and relevant because they will establish whether Mr. Albert installed a Google Nest camera at his residence at 34 Fairview Road prior to January 29, 2022, evidencing consciousness of guilt, and will provide additional evidence regarding what happened to Mr. O'Keefe at the Albert residence on January 29, 2022. Indeed, the mere existence of the requested records will establish that Brian Albert lied to law enforcement and to a grand jury under oath when he claimed that he never set up the Google Nest cameras that were purportedly gifted to him by his wife for Christmas a month before Mr. O'Keefe's death. Moreover, I am informed and believe that any data associated with Nest cameras belonging to the Alberts capturing the crime scene between 12 and 7 a.m. on January 29th would shed light on what happened to Mr. O'Keefe at 34 Fairview Road on the morning in question. Thus, I have a good faith belief that any records responsive to this request would not only be relevant, but would also be exculpatory. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right, so we'll keep going into that case. It is an interesting case, but it's time for word cookies, and gotta go home. Doodly doo. Stop. Hope you had a good Christmas, Alyssa. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, I'll get Jimmy to do that. Okay. I have to go to a scan tomorrow, so we'll see what. We'll do that. easily distracted. Hope you had a good Christmas. Mm-hmm. Suit. Okay. Hey, thank you, Heart. Lotus, yes. What's the next one? Let's see. We already have Scout, Sharon. We already have Clout. Where are all the cookies? Where are all the cookie people? Come on, cookie people. I'd like to make my advancement for Christmas. What are you guys doing? Hello? Would you all fall asleep? Type a 1 if you're still here. Because I can't see the... Who's still here? That's not a 1, Sharon. Okay, what happened to everybody? What are you doing? How come nobody's taking a guess at this? I'm working alone. I'm working all alone. Where is everybody? One, but debatable. Okay. Where is everybody? What are you doing? You've left me out to dry. You don't care about me. What? Loudest? L-O-U. There's no D. I got it. It's an S. Thank you, Margot. I am still on live chat. Yes. I am still on live chat. What? What else? I cree, Carolyn. What? Oh. What are you creeing about? What are you creeing about? I scream for ice cream. Hi, it's Pink. Good Beth. And there we go. And now my advancement. Awesome. We did it. And next. I am a citron. We did it. We always try to do the first level and the new level. First round. Swallow. No, good one. There's no C. There's only one G. Oops. Winking, yeah. No, we can't do winking. There's only one I. Oh, gown. Kin. What else? What else? Let's see. Oink. Yeah, oink is there. No. Wonky? I don't think so. Hi, Juju Positive. How are you? Knowing. Oh, ink. We do ink? I did ink. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, knowing. Did we do knowing? Hold on a minute. Let's see. Owing? I have owing. I have. Oh, owing. Owning, okay. Let's see, what did we have here? Wink? No, we did that. Wonk. Oh boy. I already tried Kong. Wonk. I tried wonk. Oh, we didn't do no? Get out of here. Oh, how stupid. Thank you, Beth. Oh, no. 100. Okay. Okay, let me see. Oh, how about nerd? Nerd. Okay, and then do done. Get her done. Under the sun, yeah. Very good, very good. Oh. Oh my goodness. All right, I think that's it for tonight, don't you? I think that's it. I'm exhausted. Oh, look at me. I colored my hair though, see? I don't have any more gray hair. No more gray roots. Gone. Bye. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for coming. We'll keep looking into that case and Turtleboy and see what's going on with that, because that's pretty interesting, I think, isn't it? I have to go to the doctor tomorrow, but after that we should be good. Maybe I'll come, I don't know, live before that or something. But thank you for coming, and Merry Christmas to everybody. It's good to see you guys here. Thanks for spending time here. Now I feel like that guy, the exaggerated hand movements. Okay, I'm not going to do that. All right. See you later, Juju. Okay, everybody. Thanks for coming. We'll see you tomorrow. No, Turtleboy, as in the guy that has a bolo out for his be on the lookout. The guy that's covering that, well, not cover. He's a big promoter in Karen Reed case. The woman that they said that she ran over her boyfriend who was in the Boston Police Department, but now they're saying it might be a cover-up. That Turtleboy. Yeah. All right, everybody. Bye. See you. God bless. Prayers. We'll see you tomorrow.